D-Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Derek Mason, Adam Vingen, David Janes here with you. Derek and I are live at Bridgestone Arena, where the Nashville Predators will host the Seattle Kraken tonight at 7. Pre-game starts at 6 right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick will be alongside momentarily. The Nashville Predators made an interesting trade last night. We will get into that more deeply once Willie arrives, but the Nashville Predators traded Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Michael Bunting and a 2026 fourth-round draft pick. So we will get into that, again, more deeply once Willie heads to the table. But, Derek, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Actually, before I ask you that question, we're also keeping tabs. The women's SEC tournament is happening as we speak. Vanderbilt is playing Tennessee. Vanderbilt with a 1-point lead in the third quarter.
They're up 4 now.
Okay, now they're up 4.
Yes.
We will keep tabs on that, as well as the Vanderbilt women are in the middle of the SEC tournament against Tennessee. So here's my question for you, Derek Mason. Are you familiar with the 5 stages of grief?
Yes.
Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance.
Finally.
Yesterday on Stillman and Company, Jared experienced the first 4 of those 5 stages.
Did he do it all at once, or throughout the show? It just kind of.
I think it's a good question. I don't know if it has to follow any specific order. He was clearly depressed when the show started. And by the way, the reason why Jared was depressed and might still be depressed is because, according to Paul Gaharski yesterday, he reported that as long as Sam Darnold wants that long-term big money contract, the Titans are not interested. So Jared was depressed. He did a little bargaining. He wondered aloud if the Titans were well, you can't purposely lie because you can't lie on accident, I guess.
You just lie.
Right. He wondered aloud if the Titans were lying to Paul and they were just trying to see what the fan reaction would be if they decided to go back to Will Levis and a stopgap quarterback such as Jameis Winston or Mac Jones or Daniel Jones. He's dealing with the denial. He's a little angry. Eventually, Jared Stillman will reach acceptance that it appears that Sam Darnold is not in the Titans' plan. And this morning on Robbie and Rexroad, as they do every Thursday, they had Charles Robinson, NFL insider for Yahoo Sports. And here is what Charles Robinson had to say about Paul Kaharski's report and Sam Darnold's market as a free agent.
My thought process on this is, if the Giants are sitting there and saying there's no way we can get up to 1 and get Cam Ward, and we can have the whole Cam Ward Shedeur conversation, I still won't put it out of the realm of possibility that they could be left with so few options that they're sitting there going, you know what, let's just offer him, the $40 million a year deal. We'll do the guarantees that are a little more robust than 2 years. Maybe guarantee some of the salary the third year. And, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter anyway, because we're not going to be here and we're not really going to worry about the money because we're not going to be here. Like, that's what I wonder is if, Darnold does have kind of a soft market, but there's a team that doesn't really have any other options and gets desperate, then it's a little bit of a different situation. I don't think Paul Kaharski's wrong. I think PK's right. I do think that, it depends like where the number is. If all of a sudden, Darnold's number is much softer than people thought, then maybe there's, a conversation where they entertain potentially signing him. But
so that was Charles Robinson on Sam Darnold today on Robbie and Rexroad. And the team that he was talking about at the beginning of the clip is the New York Giants. And the New York Giants, as we know, are desperate for a quarterback because their decision makers, they're on the hot seat. The coach and the GM, the owner of the team, made that abundantly. But then, as Jared again was going through the 5 stages of grief, anger and denial and depression and bargaining, his thought was, if the Titans aren't going to go with Sam Darnold, they have no other choice but to draft Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick. Otherwise, that means the Titans are punting on next season. If they don't sign Sam Darnold and they don't draft Cam Ward, you might as well just forget about the 2025 season. If it's Jameis Winston at quarterback, Mac Jones at quarterback, Will Levis at quarterback, whoever. Do you agree with that idea that if the Titans are indeed out on Sam Darnold, then they have to go with Cam Ward?
No, they don't. The Titans, I think they're more concerned if they don't see these two quarterbacks as whether it be Sam Darnold in free agency. They don't want to pay him money. I wouldn't be the first team that jumps out there and set the market with Sam Darnold. Now, whether he gets the $40 million that he wants, that many say he wants, that's up to the market. The market will dictate whether he gets $40 million or not, whether I believe he's worth $40 million or not. It doesn't matter. But if the Titans can't get Sam Darnold, and then they look at the draft and they say, we like Cam, but we don't think at that first pick we like him. First pick in the draft. Let's move out of this first pick. Let's accumulate some picks. Let's build our team. I think when sometimes when people look at free agency, especially now, they're looking for Patrick Mahomes. They're looking for somebody to, they think like there's going to be 4 or 5 quarterbacks out there that's just going to turn your team around as soon as he get there. And more times than not, those guys never hit the market. And they still are not in the market right now. And that includes Sam Darnold. He's not a guy that's going to turn your franchise around. He's just not. He hasn't proven it. He's just not. So when you look at the free agency market, if you don't get Sam Darnold, you don't say, "Oh man, you know what? Since I didn't get Sam Darnold, I gotta draft Cam Ward or shit." No, you don't. You can get somebody else. You can set forth, the expectation for the fan base. They did the wrong thing last year, and Willie talked about this all season. The expectation. They made it so that the fans expected 9, 10 wins, winning the AFC South. When in actuality, they were not that team. They were more of a 4, 5 win team. They ended up winning 3, I think, 3 or 4.
They won 3.
Yeah. So the expectations was set so high that you disappointed everybody. When you go into a situation like this, the first thing you want to do is build your roster up. Yes, you want to get that quarterback if you got an opportunity to get him. That quarterback that's going to change your franchise, that is going to uplift your franchise, not a Sam Darnold. If you got a chance to get that guy, if you think Cam's that guy, take him. If you don't think Cam's that guy, then okay. There are enough guys on that list that can play better football than the 2 guys they had last year, and Will Levis and Mason Rudolph. There are guys on that list that can play better football. They may not, win you 9, 10 games, but they can make you competitive if you build the team around them. There are 3 or 4 quarterbacks that can do that for you. So just because they don't get a Sam Darnold or they don't draft a quarterback first overall, that doesn't mean that they're not looking to develop the roster.
I think it's important to note that you don't want the Titans chasing after something,
exactly.
Right? Like if they don't sign Sam Darnold, unless they are smitten with Cam Ward, and Teron Davenport and Jeremy Fowler wrote a story for ESPN.com yesterday, which we will get into shortly with some really interesting nuggets of information. But I don't agree with the idea that if it's not Sam Darnold, it has to be Cam Ward. Because, again, unless Cam Ward, the Titans love him. If it's anything short of, I love this guy,
exactly,
don't do it. Because the last thing you want to do is take a player you are not smitten with the number 1 pick in the draft, and then end up having it not work out, and then you're even further behind.
Franchise that do or conduct business like that, you know what they are called? And Jared should know this because he says it all the time.
Loser franchises.
Exactly. So basically what he's saying is the Titans are a loser franchise because that's what they would, that's what they would be doing. They will be conducting themselves as loser franchise. Oh, we can't get Sam Darnold. We really don't like Cam, but we gotta take him. No, you don't have to take them. Losing franchises overextend themselves. Losing franchises make decisions out of desperation. Losing franchises look to do what Jared says the Titans are going to do. No, you need to develop your team. You need to build your roster back up. And hopefully you can get a quarterback that's going to lead your franchise for the next 10, 12 years. But if that quarterback is not around this year, then that's okay. But you let your fan base know that, hey, look, these are our expectations moving forward.
I always like to, whenever we have these conversations about quarterbacks and roster building, I always like to bring it to relationships and dating. I'm sure many of you have had this situation. You chase after someone. You really like them. It doesn't work out. Mm-hmm. They're not interested in you. So there's another person who is interested in you. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of like, well, I don't really like them as much as the other person, but they're there. So I'll just do it so that I'm not alone, right? We've all sort of settled in relationships. And that's what I feel like the Titans would be doing if they missed out on Sam Darnold and they decided to draft Cam Ward just because we need to justify the fact that we don't have Sam Darnold by drafting Cam Ward. Again, if the Titans love Cam Ward, and Teron Davenport was on our show on Monday, and I asked him about the biggest takeaway from the NFL Combine as it relates to the Tennessee Titans. And he said that if the Titans stay at 1, they will almost certainly take Cam Ward. Mm-hmm. So if they love Cam Ward, go for it. Other teams may not think he is a number 1 overall quarterback, but if you think he is, do it. But if there's any doubt, I wouldn't do it just because I missed out on the top free agent quarterback. So look, would it be exciting to watch Mac Jones start at quarterback for the Titans? Of course not. It would be highly entertaining for Jameis Winston.
Oh, absolutely.
You probably won't win a lot of games, but he'll make it interesting. He's a colorful personality. So that's great. Mm-hmm. But to me, I don't see it as an either or situation. I do not see it as either you sign Sam Darnold or you draft Cam Ward. If the Titans decide that they are not in love with Cam Ward, they should absolutely not settle on Cam Ward if they miss out on Sam Darnold. So that's where I sit on this. Like, last season was tough, man. Yeah. It was tough to watch those games. It was tough to talk about those games. The other aspect of this as well, we talked about the Giants, for example. The Giants are in desperation mode.
Yes.
They absolutely need to hit a home run on their quarterback decision. Right now, the Titans don't have to do that. Mike Borgonzi just got here. Chad Brinker was just, again, he's been here, but he was promoted.
Yes.
Right? They are not under the same amount of pressure as the New York Giants. Now we can talk about what Mac Jones starting at quarterback might mean for Brian Callahan.
Yes.
That is a different story. But the people who are in charge of putting this team together right now are under little to no pressure.
Listen, the Giants, because of the market that they're in, because of the just debacle everyone saw in the country with them choosing and their reasons for not re-signing Saquon Barkley, and you see what Saquon Barkley ultimately do the next year. He wins the Super Bowl with one of your arch rivals. So the Giants are in desperation mode. They need something. They need someone to re-energize that franchise. They're in a different category. The Titans, I would love for them to get a quarterback and it hit, but the Titans need a hit, period. See, the Giants need a quarterback hit. They need a They got to hit a wide receiver, flat out. One of the best young wide receivers in the National Football League. So they got to hit a wide receiver. They got to hit it some other positions on their team, young individuals. But they need to hit at quarterback because of what happened to them last year, and everybody saw it. The Titans just need a hit, period. I would love for it to be a quarterback, but this team, because they are so depleted, Their roster is so depleted. They need a hit, period, whether it be at defensive end, if they choose to draft Abdul Carter, or a corner / wide receiver, if they choose to draft Travis Hunter or Ted McMillan or Matthew Golden, guys like they just need a hit, not necessarily at the quarterback position, but that would be great. That's ideal. They need a hit. So if you don't see, if you're not in the market for Sam Darnold and you feel that that's just too much money, I'm not paying for him, and you are not in love with Cam Ward, just make sure whoever you draft, it's a hit. That's what you need. You need hits right now. I would love a hit at quarterback, but you need a hit, period. The Giants need a quarterback hit. So this is two different things we're talking about.
615-737-1025. A couple of questions for all of you. Number one, if the Titans are not interested in pursuing Sam Darnold, as reported by Paul Kaharski, do they have to take Cam Ward with the number 1 overall pick? Do they have to? And two, how would you feel if the Titans went into next season with some sort of stopgap quarterback, such as Jameis Winston or Mac Jones or Will Levis? I have to whisper that one. Let us know, 615-737-1025. We will take all of your reaction. Before we go to break, tune in to 93.3 FM Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU men's basketball. The Blue Raiders take on Liberty at the Murphy Center. Tip-off is at 6:30 with the pregame beginning at 6. Coverage also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com.
Happy Thursday, everyone. This is Derek Mason. You heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge over at Cool Springs MD for some time now. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting a goal or a resolution to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment. But I got a solution for you, because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understand the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. So you can't come at this thing from just one direction. You got to come at it from several different directions, okay? Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain. See, here's some of the things now. I'm about to start talking about it, people, with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect to Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
Real ice cream in Hendersonville. See why Brewster's is a scoop above the rest with the best ice cream, shakes, sundaes, splits, blasts, and more. Visit theGameNashville.com/deals now and get half off a $50 gift card while supplies last. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. My question to all of you at 615-737-1025. This from Jared Stillman yesterday, and I'm quoting from his tweet because we know how much of a stickler Jared Stillman is for making sure that you quote him accurately. If the Titans aren't going with Sam Darnold, then they have, all caps, then they have to go with Cam Ward. There is no second choice. Do you agree? 615-737-1025. Ron is in Hendersonville on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Ron, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
How you doing there? No,
Good.
We do not need to draft nobody. Okay? Listen, people got to understand Jared done lost his mind. Okay? I'm going to tell you something here. Look, it's just like we used to say in the Marine Corps. It's about beans, bullets, and Band-Aids, okay? It's about logistics right now. I know, and most fans with any common sense know, we're probably not going to the Super Bowl. We're not going to the playoffs. So you've got to take and strategize and get your resources, okay? I don't want to draft nobody if it was up to me. And I think most fans with common sense, if we brought in like a Josh Dobbs or just a stock-tail quarterback, would make sense because we're not doing nothing next year. And they know it. Set yourself up, a stockpile, get your ammunition, get some bodies in here, set yourselves up for 2027. That's the common sense way. And I'm sorry, Titan fans. That's the way you got to look at it. It's about resources. It ain't about the pretty picture and the model out there on stage. It's about beans, bullets, and Band-Aids. And that's all I got to say.
Thank you for the call,
Thank
Ron.
you, and thank you for your service, Ron.
I do want to, following up on that call, here's a text from Ben that I liked. He said, the Titans could do the same thing the Raiders did last year. No real quarterback and draft the best player available instead. And Brock Bowers is legit for probably a decade. Remember, they had Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell at quarterback last season. It won't make many people happy because 75% of Super Bowls are won by elite quarterbacks, but it is an option. Try again next offseason.
And listen, I agree somewhat with the texter. I agree somewhat with our caller. I love the beans, bullets, and Band-Aids thing. He was on point, logistics and everything, building up your roster. But see, Jared says a lot of things, and Jared does his due diligence, and whether you like it or not, he's telling you how he feels. But Jared is the same person that says losing franchises reach. Losing franchises draft guys for need. He would be the same person. Say if the Titans didn't need a quarterback, and didn't he fuss about the guard? They needed it. No, didn't he fuss about the tackle? What a guard! Yeah, they moved him from. He was a tackle in college.
Peter Skoronski.
Yeah, and ended up moving to guard. Didn't he complain about drafting a guard at 12th?
It was
11th. Did losing franchises do that? Losing franchises reach as well. Losing franchises draft a quarterback number one that they are not really sold on just because they need one. So we're going to draft him because we need it. That's what losing franchises does. And Stillman knows it. But he spews that yesterday. Or that's his headline. If they don't get Darnold, they have to draft Cam Ward.
Indy Ben on our text line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, with a question that I've thought of myself. How do you know the Titans will be in position to get one of the desired quarterbacks next draft if you pass at number one overall? You have no idea where they will be picking next year. And that is correct. If the Titans had the number one pick for the first time since 2016, and they didn't make the first round pick in 2016, the number one overall pick, I should say. They traded it to the Rams. So it's been nearly 10 years since they've been in this position. And that's really a good thing, right? Because they've been competitive for most of that stretch. But if the Titans sign Jameis Winston or Mac Jones or go back to Will Levis, worst case scenario, how many more games do you expect them to win? I expect them to be bad again next season.
But my thing is, it's not. If you don't believe that Cam Ward is worth the number 1 pick, then don't take
Right.
him.
If you have any reservations,
Exactly, don't take
do
him.
not do it.
Regardless of whether you need it or not, don't take them. If there's not a consensus across, pretty much across the board, because when you pick a number 1, it has to be pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
Like he's the guy. If you don't feel that way, then don't draft him. And to Indy Ben's comment, it's not about making sure you get that quarterback, that quarterback you may have earmarked, or everybody's earmarked. It's not there. It's a bigger pool of better quarterbacks. Last year was a bigger pool of better quarterbacks. That's why some said, well, that's why Denver ended up taking Bo Nix, because they felt, he in this draft at that pick would be better than the guys next year at any pick. So they went in and drafted Bo Nix high. And Bo Nix was probably ranked the 6th or 7th best quarterback. But look at what Bo Nix is doing now. Okay? So the pool of quarterbacks may be bigger next season in the draft. That guys that have true first-round grades, top 15 grades.
The quarterbacks who are expected to be at the top of the quarterback class next season. You've got Drew Aller out of Penn State. You have Garrett Nussmeier out of LSU. You have Cade Klubnik out of Clemson. I guess you can throw Carson Beck in there as well.
Yeah.
I don't know about Arch Manning. I don't know if he's going to be in.
He would be eligible.
Yes. But those are the quarterbacks that are front of mind for me. One texter responded to Indy Ben. Caleb said they can do this thing called trading up if they need be.
Yeah, okay, you say, well, how many more games are they going to win? And you may be right. They may win 2-3 games. So let's just say they end up the season 6 wins. That still puts you in a position where either you can trade up or you can stay at that pick. And maybe, just maybe, like the Denver Broncos, that quarterback falls to you at number 6 and you take that quarterback. I haven't studied these guys extensively that are coming out next year. And they may end up being one of the better classes coming out. I don't know. Or they may end up being one of the worst classes coming out. But as it sits now, there's a bigger pool of quarterbacks, more than likely coming out next season, that many will have a first-round grade. I'm not saying it's a high, top 2 or 3 pick, but I'm saying a first-round grade. Not many of these quarterbacks in this year's draft have a first-round grade. As we sit, there may be 2 to 3 guys. Well, next year there may be more than that have a first-round grade. So your ability to either stay at your spot that you are at, or move up or move back, you may have a better shot at getting the quarterback you want next year as opposed to this year.
Kevin on our text line says, if you had 2 lotto tickets and we're told one is worth a max 5,000, the other card is worth a max 1 million, which ticket would you take? Next season, if you win a few more games, then you get 2 lotto tickets, both worth a max 5K. Point is, with Ward, you have a chance to hit it huge, a chance you are not sure of having next year. With anyone else, you get a good player who hopefully will be a starter for 5 or 6 years.
I'm not saying, listen, I am not saying don't draft Cam Ward. If everyone in that field, in that room feels that Cam Ward is the guy at number 1, then draft him. That's a consensus across the board. Draft him. He's the guy. But if that's not the case, you have the number 1 pick. This is not like the 10th pick in the draft or the 15th pick in the draft where, okay, we got 7 people saying yay and 3 people saying no. Okay, I'm a draft him because I like him at 12, 15. But if I'm drafting number 1 and 6, 7 say yay and 3, 4 say no, okay, we need to come back. We need to talk about this. We need to talk about this because the people that are in that room are decision-making people. They have the ability to make the decision. They have the ability, and I'm talking about, the top guys, whether it's Brinker, Bongazi, McKenzie, guys like that and girls like that are up there. If there's a split or there's a majority one way or the other, it's like, let's take a step back. Let's reevaluate this. Let's go back into the classroom for another hour, watch more film, and really decide whether he's the guy or not, because it's the number 1 pick in the draft. That goes for if it was a defensive end, a corner, a wide receiver. If everyone is not on board, why are we drafting them?
One texter says, Jared doesn't like that the Titans will suck next year if they plan for the future. So he says they can't do that because of Amy. But if Amy truly is handing it over to Brinker, then wouldn't it be the start of an actual rebuild?
Yeah, and this is what Willie talked about too. Last year in regards to the messaging, and it should have just been a message of rebuild. If it was a message of rebuild, I don't think the fan base would have looked at the season the way it went and would have been as disappointed. They were disappointed because they were sold a dream that this was going to be a winning team. We were preparing to win. We were preparing to win the AFC South. When you knew exactly what type of roster you had, and the likelihood of y'all winning was all predicated on whether Will Levis shows up or not. And he didn't. They sold the fan base a dream, and they were upset so much so they stopped coming to the games toward the end of the season. That's why the Titans are in the situation that they're in with their fan base. But if you come out and you tell people, like, this is what the expectation is. We're not drafting Cam Ward because we don't think he's the guy. But this is what the expectation is moving forward. We're building our team. That's what you want.
615-737-1025 will continue to take your thoughts on the quarterback position for the Tennessee Titans. But coming up next, our very own Teron Davenport and Jeremy Fowler at ESPN.com had a story yesterday about what the Titans will do with the number 1 overall pick. Some interesting tidbits in that story. We will discuss those next. 615-737-1025. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D-Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick joining us. Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. The Vanderbilt women up 77-61.
63, 64 now.
64. It's happening so fast, I can't
Yes.
keep up. They are playing in the second round of the women's SEC tournament. Time winding down in the fourth quarter. Vanderbilt up on Tennessee. We'll keep tabs on that. As we were at break, Derek,
Uh-huh.
Todd Richards, Predators assistant coach, walked out of the arena through Barrel House, asked us about Sam Darnold, a Minnesota native.
Exactly.
Todd
Yes.
Richards
Very, very locked in.
basically said, "We don't want him.
Exactly.
Those last two games were awful."
And I'm sure that's some of the sentiment from other Viking fans. Well, it's the sentiment of the organization, because it doesn't seem like they want to have anything, to do on it, especially not at that price. So, I don't blame them.
Isn't that something though? Would they have said that?
Mhm.
Because I like we experienced in this market after the loss by the Titans to the Bengals, right? There was the recency bias of, you got to get Tannehill out of there.
Yeah.
We don't want him. You would have had a lot of people with that same emotion that Vikings fans had about Darnold.
Yeah.
The question is that the right move? Will you feel like that 6 months from now, 8 months from now? That's the question that you can't
A lot
answer.
a lot of it depends on whether J.J. McCarthy
Oh yeah.
is the guy or not.
Well, that's the difference, is that they have the guy.
Exactly. The Titans
The Titans did
really-
not have
yeah,
that guy
yeah,
at the time.
Yeah.
So an interesting story on ESPN.com. I want to say it was published yesterday, co-bylined by Teron Davenport and Jeremy Fowler. What will the Tennessee Titans do with the number one pick? And a really good read from Teron Davenport and Jeremy Fowler. There were some interesting news nuggets in this story that I would like to discuss. So according to Teron Davenport and Jeremy Fowler, a few themes emerged from talks with dozens of league personnel. One, Ward is the consensus number one quarterback in the draft by a comfortable margin, according to some, but Shedeur Sanders' pocket passing ability as a deft processor is appreciated and will make for an easy NFL transition. Thus, he becomes a slightly better fit for a Brian Callahan offense in Tennessee, according to multiple scouts. That was number one. Number two, those same people believe the Titans' three primary options will be Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, and trading out of the top spot. The majority of league personnel surveyed by ESPN believe Tennessee prefers to trade out. Questions abound about how eager teams will really be to trade into the number one spot. The New York Giants at number 3 and New York Jets at number 7 are among teams that have interest in moving up, according to ESPN senior national NFL writer Dan Graziano. But some around the league question whether the talent in this draft necessitates a move due largely to the lack of top-end quarterback prospects. So that is some reporting from Teron Davenport and Jeremy Fowler. So let's start at the top. Cam Ward is the consensus number one quarterback in the draft by a comfortable margin, according to some, but Shedeur Sanders' pocket passing ability as a deft processor is appreciated and will make for an easy NFL transition. Thus, he becomes a slightly better fit for a Brian Callahan offense in Tennessee, according to multiple scouts.
I said this some weeks ago about the two, and I still believe it to be true, especially after reading what Teron had to say and what Graziano is saying also. That if you want high ceiling potential, guy that sort of just pops, that you feel, okay, it's a couple of years, it may take him a couple of years to really develop, but man, oh man, once he get there, we're going to be all right. But that first year may be a little bumpy. Then you draft Cam Ward. Hands down, you draft Cam Ward because he has the biggest upside, the largest upside. And you're right. When you're evaluating both of them, it seems like Cam is ahead of Shedeur by a comfortable margin. And the comfortable margin could be they got him ranked at a 98.8. I'm just throwing out numbers. They got him ranked at a 98, and they got Shedeur at probably a 94 or 93. That's what I'm saying. But if you want to, more than likely, if you got a team and you want to compete now, the safe bet is Shedeur Sanders. He's the safe pick. Why? Because he's more NFL ready, I believe, than Cam Ward. I think, based upon Cam Ward's, he has a lot of potential, and based upon, the attributes and everything else, a strong arm and ability to move around the pocket, he has a higher ceiling. But if you want to win now, show some progress now, you draft Shedeur Sanders. And I'm not saying you draft him at number 1. I'm just saying you draft Shedeur Sanders, because I think Shedeur Sanders right now is more NFL ready. That doesn't mean he's better than Cam Ward. He's just more NFL ready. He's been in that environment. He's had NFL coaches, and I mean coaches that had just came from the NFL ranks. Okay, so their whole operation was NFL-ish in a sense. So he's more ready. He's more adaptable to a situation like Brian Callahan, where you got your offense and you just need a guy to distribute the ball. Well, Shedeur Sanders is your guy, but that doesn't mean that he's going to be better than Cam Ward. In about 2 years, Cam Ward may surpass him big time. But if you want the safe pick and you want your offense to be ran without as many hiccups, and not to say it's going to be great like Jaden Daniels, then you draft Shedeur Sanders. But I'm not saying draft him at number 1 either.
So let's piggyback off of that last note about how eager certain teams would be to moving up. Also, according to Teron Davenport and Jeremy Fowler, quote, multiple evaluators polled believe a package of picks, say a future second rounder and an early day 3 pick, might be enough for a team such as the Giants to move from number 3 to number 1. Teams picking high might be hesitant to part with a future first rounder, given that those teams aren't slam dunks to be in contention a year from now and might hold on to prime positioning in the 2026 draft.
I think this ends up being the essential question: is what is your best offer for the first overall pick? And I think we've seen a number of trades that involve the Giants in particular that don't blow you away with what you get as extra stuff. I think what you have to think about is, if the Giants are going to give you an offer to move from 3 to 1, then is there a guy at 3 that you really think is exactly what Mike Borgonzi labeled, right, as the type of player you want? The guy who drives your culture, all of those things, right, and is an impact player on the field for you. If you like that, then I think you're very interested in that. I want the big picture. I want the picks if I can get it. So if I'm getting the 3rd overall pick and I love that guy, and I get XYZ extra picks, I'm interested, especially if I'm not completely enamored with either quarterback.
Yeah, I think what happens is, if indeed that's something that you may do on draft day, obviously what will dictate that is what they're willing to give up, meaning the New York Giants. Okay, if they come to all your demands, what you want in regards to moving out of the number 1 spot and moving to 3, if they come and they say, well, yes, we'll give you this, and this, whatever it is. Okay, now what you said to everyone, you didn't believe that Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders were worthy of the number 1 pick. So you move down to 3. Now, to me, you've put yourself in the best possible position outside of the number 1 pick. Why do I say that? For this reason. Because now you kind of sort of see where the draft is headed, even though you're at the 3rd spot, because you see who they're going to pick at 1. You see who they're going to pick at 2, the New England Patriots. Now you may be able to say, should I move down another spot?
Or do the Browns have 2, right?
No, the Browns. Yeah, the Browns. Yeah. And New England has
4.
4.
Yeah.
4. So you look at the Browns, you see, okay, they take their guy. Now you're in a position, now you're sitting on top of the draft looking down. as opposed to being the top
Yeah.
one. And
So you could move down to 3 and then move down again if you like.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. That's what
Yeah.
I'm getting to. Now you are in a better position to see where the draft is actually going at the
Right.
top
You
half.
can dictate it.
Exactly, absolutely. I forget. I think Baltimore did that one year. Somebody did that one year where they kept moving. I think Tennessee even did it when they moved out of the number 1 pick, and then they end up drafting
Right.
and moving down. Then they
1
end up
to
moving
15
back up.
to 8.
Yes, absolutely.
615-737-1025. Another interesting aspect of the Titans situation. Brian Callahan, Teron Davenport, and Jeremy Fowler touched on Brian Callahan in this story. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game. D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you live at Bridgestone Arena. Predators and Kraken tonight at 7. Pregame at 6 right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The Vanderbilt women are trying to put the finishing touches on the Lady Vols.
This is the game that will never end here with all the reviews and the fouls at the end of the game.
Did you guys know that Willie Donick loves reviews? He
Oh, I
loves
thought
reviews.
Oh, really? No
He
way.
loves them. But Vanderbilt
They have got to come up with a different system here. This is just ridiculous.
But Vanderbilt in position to eliminate the Lady Vols in the second round of the SEC tournament. Of course,
In all honesty, that would be a really big win for them. Michaela Blake's hit the buzzer beater at Memorial Gym that kind of really got them going early in the conference season. But to beat them as soundly as they're beating them today is very impressive for Shea Ralph's team.
and the SEC men's tournament, of course, will be right here at Bridgestone Arena next week. A lot of action in the SEC last night. We will get to that later in the program. Elliot Friedman, Sportsnet and NHL Insider, will join us at 1 o'clock. A lot to get into with Elliot. The NHL trade deadline is tomorrow. We will also break down the Predators trade shortly. But before we get there, continuing this story from Teron Davenport and Jeremy Fowler on ESPN.com about the Titans' plans with the number 1 pick. Another passage that I found to be interesting. Quote, "The hierarchy in Tennessee plays a pivotal role here. In late January 2024, the Titans promoted Brinker to president of football operations, promoted Rand Carthon to executive vice president / general manager, and hired Callahan as coach. Tennessee fired Carthon less than a year later, prompting Brinker to run a GM search that landed on Kansas City Chiefs assistant GM Mike Borgonzi. While controlling team owner Amy Adams Strunk was the common thread in all of these decisions, Brinker was a heavier influence in Borgonzi's hire than he was with Callahan, given Carthon's absence in the process. That's not to say Callahan doesn't have support in the building. Callahan is well respected there and has kept his staff largely intact. But he is a second-year coach coming off a 3-win season, while Borgonzi gets a fresh start. Such uneven timelines can work, but don't always work. Tennessee's strategy over the next 2 months, including at the quarterback position, will show whether it is all in to help Callahan now or embarking on a rebuild that is typically difficult for coaches to survive."
This I don't get, right? You can talk about these things, right? And if you believe that Brian Callahan is a good coach, then just you're going to lose some games. If you choose to go deeper into the rebuild, which is okay, just tell your coach and tell your fans that this is how it's going to be. Brian Callahan is going to be the coach. We may not win a lot of games, but we believe in him as the coach. I know you can say that, and it still ends up the coach is the one that kind of takes the heat if things aren't going well. But that's why you have to be upfront with what your plan is, what's your goal.
And listen, I've said this before with Brian Callahan, and I think I asked Tim this question 2 weeks, not the last one we had on, but the time before that. And my question to Tim was, do you think the Titans are going to do what's best for the organization, or are they going to do what's beneficial to Brian Callahan? And some people may not understand that question, because you may think, well, if they're doing what's best for Brian Callahan, they're doing what's best for the organization. No,
Not necessarily.
Yeah, exactly. Not necessarily.
But sometimes the coach has to take the heat.
Exactly.
But you tell everybody, be patient with the coach. We're not giving him the weapons we could give him. Our goal is not to win 7 or 8 games as opposed to 2 or 3 games this year. This is an exploratory year. All you got to do is say that. It's a rebuild.
Yeah, but
use whatever terminology you want.
But they've said already that they expect progress. They've said, hey, he understands that we need to see progress. He understands. But when you're talking about Borgonzi and Brinker, we have time. We're going to show patience. That's what they said. We're going to show patience. But Brian Callahan understands that we need to see some progress in this team. So it goes back to the essential question. Well, what is progress? You're not telling us what progress is. You told us how you want to build this team back up, but you didn't answer the one question. What does progress look like for Brian Callahan? Because if progress looks like, okay, we're going to draft the quarterback, we're going to go through our ups and downs. We may not hit it out the park like Houston did or the Commanders did, but we're going to be on this rocky road for the first year. But Brian Callahan, you are our guy. Is that what progress mean? Or is it you need to win, 7 games? We need to see some real progress, like some tangible stuff, like the fans can see that we're 7 and whatever. We still have a shot of winning AFC South and going to the playoffs. Well, if that's the case, then you need to give me my guy. Whoever my guy is, whoever I think my guy is, I need to have him.
Quickly, Vanderbilt has indeed defeated Tennessee 84-76. The Commodores have a date with the Gamecocks tomorrow at 11 Central.
And it was interesting. The tie-breaking system for this tournament, it came down to a coin flip, which South Carolina won to get the 1 seed. They tied, but there was a tie-breaking procedure that was very complicated. It ended up being a coin flip. So South Carolina is the 1 seed, and that doesn't surprise anybody. They're the defending champions. They're perennially in the mix. Tough matchup, but a great opportunity, I think, for Vanderbilt. They're safely in the tournament now. They're playing for a seed. That was a really good win over Tennessee. Always nice to beat Tennessee. Like they haven't beaten Tennessee too many times over the last several years. So that's a great win for them. Blake's, I think, had 23, 24 points, something like that. Not a dominating game, but good enough.
Not a 50-point game for
not
Michaela
a
Blake.
Not like our usual 50
Come on,
points.
Michaela, what's wrong? You only had 25 today.
So Vanderbilt, the women, will take on South Carolina tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Back to Brian Callahan. You touched on something, Derek, that I wanted to ask you. If you're Brian Callahan, we talked about the quarterback decision at the beginning of the show with the news that, according to Paul Kaharski, the Titans are not going to chase after Sam Darnold with a big money contract. We talked about what Jared said on the show yesterday, that if it's not Sam Darnold, it has to be Cam Ward. If you're Brian Callahan, which quarterback, it can be a specific name or it can just be a type of quarterback, which quarterback do you think Brian Callahan wants?
That's a good question.
A winning quarterback, obviously.
Well,
no,
yes.
I think someone that
I don't know if there is one
yeah, you're right. I mean,
that has won. Really, you're going to be taking somebody
Right,
like-
who has not had success
exactly,
recently.
or is the draft and he has developed.
Right,
himself.
let's do it this way.
Okay.
If your choice, if Brian Callahan's choices were Cam Ward, Aaron Rodgers, or I'm trying to throw another name out there. Well, let's just go with those two.
Okay.
Assuming that Darnold is out, and I think Rodgers, I'm not sure if he's a legitimate possibility. But if you're Brian Callahan, would you want an opportunity to work with a rookie quarterback to show that you can help develop him after not being able to do so with Will Levis last season? Or do you want a player like Aaron Rodgers who theoretically gives you a better chance to win and therefore keep your job?
Okay, my first thought was Aaron Rodgers. I want Aaron Rodgers because why? He gives you more of an opportunity to save your job in a sense. And I know the way that team, the Jets, looked last year, you're probably scratching your head like, why? But I still think Aaron Rodgers is a damn good quarterback. Now, you got to get over the personality, but I think he's still a really good quarterback in this league. He's one of the top 12, 13 quarterbacks, I believe, in the National Football League. But if you want to sort of salvage your reputation as a quarterback developer, because again, Willie Adam, why did they, our audience, why did they bring Brian Callahan in? Why did they hire him as a head coach?
Because of his experience working with reputable quarterbacks.
Absolutely. This is why they brought him in. This is what he's standing on. This is what helped him really get the job. So if that's what helped me really get the job, that's like saying, you're really good, I don't know, carpenter, but you go into a house and you don't do the job quite right. There's still some things messed up, and you leave it going to, and then people call you back and say, you know what, you didn't do a good job. Are you going to say, well, that's your problem now and go about your business? Or are you going to say, you know what, let me go back and try it again. I'm going to show you that, that you can count on my work, my craftsmanship. So I'm going to go back there and I'm going to try to fix it and make it look even better than what I left it. That's Brian Callahan. And that's just about every head coach, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator. All of them. They feel that they can make that guy. So I failed once. I want another opportunity to do it again. So if I'm Brian Callahan and my ego, because they all have egos, you can't say put your egos aside. No, you can't. My thing is I want to show you, because if the last thing we saw was Will Levis, after you get fired, you're not getting another head coaching job. You're just not, because the moniker that you had, you were a quarterback developer. Well, if you didn't develop Will Levis and they didn't give you an opportunity to develop the next guy, you're not getting another head coaching job. That's just the way it is until you can prove you can develop a guy. So if I'm him, I'm like, draft Cam Ward. Let me develop him. Let me show y'all what I can do with a young quarterback.
What do you think, Willie? How would you answer that question?
Well, this is where the evaluation of Cam Ward is essential, and Shedeur and every quarterback that's in there, because you have to be as sure as you can be if you're going to go down that road. I still think what you have. Look, ultimately, I think Brian Callahan is a good young coach that needs some time and will get better. But unfortunately, he's in the position he's in. And this does happen sometimes to coaches. You don't make the calls. They don't run the whole show. So if I'm at the top, what can you use to buy some time? You have a new stadium.
Yeah.
Sell to your fans. We want to build the roster to really be ready to win when that stadium opens. And until then, it's going to take some building. We're a long way from winning. Go all in on that. And then make the decision that you want. Maybe it is Cam Ward if you really feel that that's the case. But I am not going down the Aaron Rodgers. Really, the more I think about it, I'm out on that. Like, who cares if you have Aaron Rodgers for a year in a stadium that's, aging, just to save your head coach? That's you can't say, hey, well, we got to placate the head coach, and so Aaron Rodgers might lead us to 7 or 8 wins. Like, what's best case scenario, really? But I would rather see if I can explore and see if I can get the next Sam Darnold or the next Baker Mayfield, a reclamation project. Maybe Brian Callahan could score big with that, taking a guy like that. And maybe you're not searching for the quarterback. Maybe you hit pay dirt. And if not, you're not out any financial
obligation.
Cap. Right. No obligation long term. And now you can go back to the well. Even if you win 4 or 5 games next year and you're picking top 5, maybe there'll be a better quarterback that you do like. This is if you don't like Ward.
Right. I only used Aaron Rodgers just as an example, right? Like, just veteran stopgap type quarterback.
He's a lightning rod.
I'm going for the reclamation project.
Right.
The cheap reclamation.
Right.
That's what I'm going for.
So let's use one of those reclamation projects, for example. Would you rather, if you were Brian Callahan, would you rather have the Titans draft Cam Ward and show, as Derek said, that you can develop a young quarterback, or Justin Fields, who is still a young quarterback?
But now tell me the other part of that equation. You take Justin Fields, but what else am I getting? Who's my first pick? Is the first pick Carter? And I have extra picks. This is all part of what you get when you make that choice.
My larger point is, and I agree with Derek, my larger point is, if the choice is between a veteran quarterback, you know what you're getting. He may be able to help you win more games. Therefore, your record does not look as bleak as it does after one season as an NFL head coach. Versus a rookie quarterback. Considering your reputation as a quarterback developer, which the Titans said you were when they hired you. That was a big part of the news release. If I'm Brian Callahan, I want the opportunity with a young quarterback.
But with the roster you have, can that quarterback succeed? I don't care if you're a quarterback wizard.
That's a good question.
But
who do you have?
But I understand These GMs are not looking at the situation that you're in. They're looking at how did you get out of that situation. That's what they're looking at when they're looking to hire you as their head coach, the owner, and the GM. They're not looking at the situation you're in right at that particular moment. They're looking at how did you get out that situation if you did. Now that's why we're hiring you, because we believe that you can get our franchise out of this same position that you were in or your team was in a few years ago or last year. So I don't think it's necessarily about, okay, having Cam Ward, having nobody else. No. How do you develop that guy within all of that you have?
Okay,
You just got to develop. How do you develop him?
And
Perhaps
here-
I have
this is
tunnel
the-
vision.
No,
on
but
this question.
here's the key question too. Will Amy Adams sit up there
Yeah.
and be patient with what Mike Barganzi, Chad Brinker decide? Because they're the ones that are going to decide how long the track is. Amy Adams Strunk has got to not have she's in charge, right? She can change her mind on a dime. We know that.
Mhm.
And has changed her mind on a dime. I would sell hard to her. Amy, we want to have a really good roster that has a chance to win when that new stadium opens. Give us time between now and then. We may have to get through some tough Sundays with Mac Jones, Daniel Jones. Remember the Lewis and Clark expedition. We got the Joneses. We got the Trubiskys. We've got all of these guys out there, and it may be ugly. And that might need to happen to get the roster where you need to get it. This roster is barren. Not Justin Barron for the Predators, who's going to play tonight because they traded Luke Shen. But it is barren. It's not going to magically get better. I don't care how much money you want to spend in free agency and do whatever. They don't have the answers for this coming year, and she needs to know that. Be realistic about it.
My question, I admit I might have some tunnel vision because I'm looking specifically at the quarterback position.
Mhm.
You're right, Willie. There are many other factors that go
Exactly.
into this decision other than the quarterback position. My thought is if I were Brian Callahan, I would like another shot at a young quarterback because it did not work last year with Will Levis. And I've said before, maybe Will Levis, there was
Someday
only
that will happen, right? He's just got to survive long enough to get for the right guy to come in. You got to make the right choice.
Right.
It doesn't have to be this year.
Right.
But he may not. But
Well,
listen,
but that
he
you've
may
got-
not
you-
get out of this year
Okay.
as a head coach.
That's
And
the
what
reality.
but that's what you're trying. You're trying to preserve your spot as head coach on this team. So you are. If I was the one making the decision, I would go
Right.
with Aaron Rodgers or somebody of that ilk. That's
Right.
or
But
somebody.
these
in
are
that,
the decisions
yeah.
that screw up organizations. 'Cause
Exactly,
'cause
because I'm
you-
trying to save my
Right.
job,
And-
so
and
I need to do this. But
This
if the
article-
organization is trying to develop, and I need, because whether I keep my job or not, they're still going to want me to develop a young quarterback.
But this is
So-
where wrong decisions are made
Uh-huh.
because somebody individually looks out for themselves,
Mhm.
and it's not the best thing for the big picture of the franchise.
But ultimately,
that's what
everybody's looking out for themselves. But it may come
but
out
this
as
is not a quick
as
fix. This
franchise
is not a
thing.
quick fix situation.
No, I didn't say it was quick
Yeah.
fix. I'm saying as far as a head coach, they got hired primarily because they believed that I was a developer of quarterbacks. I come in here with the young quarterback and he regress instead of getting better. Then I want another shot at it. So I'm taking Cam Ward, regardless of what's going on. I'm taking Cam Ward, and then I need to show you. We may not win, but if Cam Ward looks like Caleb Williams, then that means we're developing him. He's getting better. Caleb Williams his team had a bad season, but there were within that season you saw that okay, Caleb he's developing. He can be the guy that helps you moving forward, even though your team is not doing well.
615-737-1025. Your thoughts on Brian Callahan, the situation he finds himself in. If you were Brian Callahan, would you rather have an established quarterback to pad your win-loss record, maybe keep your job, or would you like an opportunity at a younger quarterback to show that you can indeed develop quarterbacks, which Brian Callahan was unable to do last season with Will Levis? 615-737-1025. We'll get to your reaction next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063. The Game.
What could you do with an extra $75,000? Maybe $100,000? Or maybe you've got a price that you have in mind of the amount of money you need to address different financial things. It could be a combination of a tuition payment for one of your children. It could be a car loan that is got a high interest rate and you want to pay off that car. Maybe it's a credit card bill that you want to get down to zero. Those credit card bills can have those high interest rates. Well, Loan Pronto is the leader in taking your home's equity and turning it into cold hard cash so you can address those things. Pay off the credit card bill, start a home remodeling project, pay off the personal loan. Get approved in as little as 1 day with no hard credit pull up front. Just call loanpronto.com. Well, that's the website, loanpronto.com, or call 615-499-5780. That's loanpronto.com or 615-499-5780. Get the money you need. Talk to a representative there. They can help you. No paperwork, no cumbersome process, no junk fees, often no appraisal. Equal housing lender, NMLS 166-1781, subject to lender approval, NMLSconsumeraccess.org.
D. Mace, Vingen, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingen here with you talking Titans and specifically Brian Callahan. And I do want to clarify something. One texter said during the break, why would you assume that Callahan has any say in the pick? I'm not saying he does.
He does have input.
Right.
It just says he doesn't make the call. Right.
He My point is, if you were Brian Callahan, what would you want Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker to ultimately decide? What would be best for you? That is the question.
In reading the article that you pointed out, Adam, which I think is a very thorough article that kind of gives you a little insight on how this process works. Brian Callahan is quoted heavily in that article, as is Borgonzi. I don't think Borgonzi read that article and said, "Man, why are they quoting Callahan? He has no say." Like, obviously, you should be picking the brain of your coach when doing the evaluating, especially because Callahan does have a background in evaluating talent, especially quarterbacks.
Lance from Clarksville is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Lance, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Yeah, you witnessed it in the Super Bowl this year, and you witnessed a few years ago when he lost his other Super Bowl, Mahomes. When he has a great offensive line, he's a great quarterback. Me personally, I think they should make do with the quarterback they can find and don't worry about fix the rest of the team, because the consequences are going to be the same either way. You have a great quarterback, you win 6 straight games. You have a great quarterback without a rest of the team, or you got a good team, you're going to win 6 straight games. So build the rest of the team and then worry about the quarterback.
Thank you for the
Now
call,
hang up
Lance.
and listen.
Thank you. I mean, there's several different avenues you can go down. I guess the ideal avenue is, hey, listen, find your franchise quarterback, all while trying to develop the roster. And I think that's what Brinkert and Borgonzi, I think that's what they're set out to do now. Will they find that guy this year, meaning their quarterback? Maybe, maybe not. But if they don't, then like the caller said, and we've said this, well, develop your roster, get your roster back, up to par. Your roster is not a good one, but whoever you draft, and this is just me, whoever you draft has to be a hit. I think you need to have more hits out of this draft than not.
Tyree is on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Tyree, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
I'm gonna make quick two takes and I'll be done. I think if the way we go with the quarterback position, if I think they go with someone in a free agency instead of the rookie, I think for me that tells me less about how they feel about the rookies and more about how they feel about Callahan and his developmental skills, just for me personally. And the other thing is, I don't know why everybody thinks that the number 1 draft pick is the only tool we have to pick up extra draft picks. And I don't like the way people are downplaying trading the second pick. I think there's going to be a big run on defensive tackle. I think people are going to want to get up there, and you can get your third and trade for a second and then build it that way.
Tyree, I just want to clarify one point with you before we let you go. So on your first point about the free agent quarterback being a reflection of their thoughts on Brian Callahan, are you saying that they don't have faith in him to develop a young quarterback and therefore would bring in a free agent quarterback instead?
That's what I'm saying. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you for the call, Tyree. Appreciate it.
I mean, listen, one can look at it from that standpoint of, but then that I have to know, like, truly how they feel about the 2 quarterbacks in this year's draft. If they feel that, okay, yeah, it's going to take some developing, but we don't think you're the guy to do it, and then you should have fired him.
Then why even have him as your coach?
You should have fired him. You should have fired him. You shouldn't even have him as your coach this year. But I mean, if you don't think, the minute you don't think the guy that you hire, because he could develop quarterbacks, can't develop quarterbacks, then you need to fire him. Because eventually, I don't think in today's football, more times than not, you got to have a homegrown individual to have consistent success in this league. And what I mean by a homegrown individual, I mean a guy that you draft, whether it's in the first round, second round, you draft and you develop.
One texter says Callahan's got to win 8 or he's gone. So why draft a quarterback to fire the head coach and give him a new offense next year? Would be setting up the coach and the quarterback.
Well, we don't know.
It's the wrong mentality to say you've got to win X amount of games to keep your job. I don't, even though that is something that Burke Nihill basically said. He didn't put a number on it. We're going to hold him. Yeah. That's the wrong thing. This is a rebuild. They have a roster that is Justin barren. It is barren. You're moving out into the West. It's the country. It's the prairies. It's the desert. They don't have enough talent to win.
It's the Oregon Trail, as we talked about.
It's the Oregon Trail.
We
This
just-
is
I just
we're
hope-
the explorers.
I just hope that the Titans don't die of dysentery, which is what
Yes.
happened to me every time I played Oregon Trail. Either my ox, they drowned in the river as I was crossing the river, or my family died of dysentery, which
Oh,
sounds
man.
really bad.
That would be really bad.
I'm hopeful that the Titans aren't dying of dysentery
Hold
with
on,
all
you-
of these
Hold
decisions.
on, you said that happened every time. You're not a good player then if it happens every time.
I took risks. I took risks on the Oregon Trail. I had to make it out west.
That's your
Oh,
problem, man. You
man.
took
Not
risks.
everybody survives.
Exactly.
Oh man. All right, let's see. What else do we have here? We have one texter that says you can't lose 2 seasons in a row.
Yes, you can, and people do.
This
It's
wouldn't be-
possible. They're going to
wouldn't be
lose.
2
They're going
seasons.
to lose a lot of games next year.
No,
I'm
it's
pretty
not.
confident
It's
in
not.
saying that.
It's not just losing 2 games in a row. I mean, 2 seasons in a row. It's being a losing team for damn near 4 seasons. And I get it. Brian Callahan wasn't a part of the first 2 losing seasons, but damn it, he would be a part of the second 2. And again, listen, whether Bert Nihil meant 8 games or 6 games, he's gonna have to show improvement in all facets: the win category, the developmental category, the logistics category, the coaching category. He has to show development headed in the right direction. Because again, this everything we're talking as if this team got 5-6 years to get this right. They don't. They have 2 years to get this right.
And then
Because
the new
they're
stadium
moving
opens.
into a new
Yes,
stadium.
I agree.
Absolutely. They only have
That's
2
fair.
years to get this right.
So-
So
Tyree's other point,
Yeah.
by the way, was the second round pick, using the second round pick to move up. And I just looked at what the Titans gave up to move up to take Will Levis with the 33rd overall pick in the 2023 NFL draft. Tennessee sent number 41 and 72 plus a 2024 third round selection to Arizona to move up to 33, adding the 81st pick in the deal. So I feel like I haven't heard a lot about the idea of moving the second pick, which is at the top of the second round, to accumulate more picks.
I mean, you can try. Yeah, you can either do that, move back, get your picks, or if you've traded down, or if you kept the number 1 pick, you do have the ability, and you say, you know what, I want to get this guy right now because he may be off the board by the end of the first round. So you move from the top of the second round into the bottom of the first round. You are team pick 26 or 27. So you can also do that and upgrade your roster as well, because now essentially you've moved out of that second round pick, top of the second round pick, back into the bottom of the first round. Now, what do you have to give up in order to do that? Because you're going to have to give up something. You may not have to give up a third round pick, but you may have to give up like a 5th to try to do that. Are you willing to do that to get the guy that you think will not be there in the second round?
615-737-1025. The Nashville Predators made another deal last night. Initially, it was a bit of a head scratcher. I have some thoughts on it, and we'll get to that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 102.5, 106.3, The Game. D-Mace, Vingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Elliot Friedman, Sportsnet NHL Insider, will join us in the next segment. The NHL trade deadline is tomorrow, I believe, at 2 p.m. Central. So right when our show goes off the air tomorrow will be the end of the NHL trade deadline. But the Predators got ahead of the deadline again last night, trading Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn to the Pittsburgh Penguins for Michael Bunting and a 2026 fourth-round draft pick. First off, why are the Penguins reassembling the 2023-2024 Nashville Predators? They now have Anthony Beauvillier, Cody Glass, Philip Tomasino, Tommy Novak, and Luke Schenn. Just want to throw that out there. But when I saw this trade last night...
That's almost as many as the Wild have.
It's up there. When I saw this trade last night, which was broken by Elliot Friedman, it was a bit of a head-scratcher, considering where these two teams are in the standings. Neither of these teams are making the playoffs. So let's start with Michael Bunting. For those of you who might be unfamiliar with Michael Bunting was a late bloomer. He didn't break out in the NHL until he was 26 years old. He played 2 seasons with the Toronto Maple Leafs in 2021 and 2022. He scored a combined 46 goals over those 2 seasons. He was primarily playing with Austin Matthews on the Maple Leafs top line. He's bounced around a little bit since then. He went to Carolina, was traded from Carolina to Pittsburgh in the Jake Gensel trade last year. And in parts of 2 seasons with the Penguins, he had 48 points, 20 goals, 28 assists, and 79 games. He was a finalist for the Rookie of the Year award in 2022, despite being 26 years old. Again, he was a late bloomer. He was indeed a rookie at the advanced age of 26 years old. So Michael Bunting is signed through next season at $4.5 million per season. So when I look at this trade, guys, the Predators are saving cap space. Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn have a combined $6.25 million cap hit. Michael Bunting is 4.5. So the Predators save $1.75 million against the cap by making this trade. But to me, the headline of this trade is Tommy Novak. It was 1 year ago on Tuesday, 2 days ago, 1 year ago on Tuesday, that the Predators signed Tommy Novak to a 3-year, $10.5 million contract. In the 72 regular season games he played after signing that contract, he had 33 points, which is an average of 0.46 per game. That does not include the 0 points he had in 6 playoff games against the Canucks last April. I commend Barry Trotz for acknowledging that he made a mistake by signing Tommy Novak to a 3-year contract and hoping that he could be this team's second-line center. At the same time, it was a gross miscalculation by Barry Trotz to sign Tommy Novak to that contract and expect him to be this team's second-line center. I was reading the trade grades for this move on The Athletic. They were written by Sean Gentili, who is a national NHL writer who's based in Pittsburgh and covered the Penguins at one point, if I'm not mistaken, and Shayna Goldman, who is a analytics writer. I'm trying to find the passage here from Sean Gentili that stood out to me. Quote, frankly, it would be easy to argue that Nashville's disaster of a season traces in no small part back to the decision to rely on Novak as the center for Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault. So, again, I commend Barry Trotz for acknowledging his mistake and getting out of this contract, but it doesn't erase the fact that Barry Trotz, again, made a major miscalculation by thinking that Tommy Novak was the answer at second-line center. Willie, your thoughts?
Well, let's remember that Tommy Novak only makes $3.5 million per year. That is not second-line center money. Would you agree?
Correct.
So it was a calculated risk when they signed him that, okay, we've got him at 3.5. And so if he doesn't make it as the second line center, the fallback plan is He doesn't break your bank as a third liner. Unlike Matt Duchene, who was paid first line center money at $8 million and was not playing up to that. He couldn't fall back. You can't just put a guy like that on your third or fourth line. Same thing with Ryan Johansson, who was making $8 million, right? You can't have a fourth liner making $8 million. You can have a third line center, which is, or third line winger, which is essentially what Tommy Novak became, and put him in on the third line. Fair? So you had options there. All that being said, this trade to me basically tells me that Barry Trotz had come to a conclusion that he doesn't believe Tommy Novak is even worth 3.5 as a third line player. I see, this is my evaluation of Tommy Novak is he is not going to be good enough to be a number 2 center. I think they would love to have had a better second line center or a first line center, right? Barry Trotz has been singing that song since he became, I mean, I don't know how many times he's brought that up on the air. We're looking for that one center. He's been looking for him. The problem is he just hasn't been able to land that. In the meantime, they tried to get Tommy Novak to jump up and grab that spot, and he just never was able to do it, right? Now, maybe he'll do it in Pittsburgh. Time will tell. I see Tommy Novak as a guy that I don't think is ideally suited to be a number 2 center. I don't think he's going to get there. I do think he can be a sneaky source of good offense playing on a third line. I don't know how Pittsburgh intends to use him because I think there's just as much of befuddlement on the Pittsburgh side. Would you agree, Adam?
Yes, I would agree with that.
So what this just tells me is the Tommy Novak experience from Barry Trotz's perspective, they were done with it. They thought it was better just to move on and figure something else out. I would have maybe let it ride out a little bit more. Novak had started to play a little bit better, but I think they just feel like they need a little more. They're going to clear the cap space and then use those resources to try something else that will try to land them a center. And they do clear Novak's numbers off the books and Shen. So that gives them, if you think about it, that gives them a better budget to try to go all in and try to find another center.
I was thinking of the right way to explain my next thought. And then I found one of my undercover favorite follows on social media when it comes to the Predators. At Angry Preds Fan. You've probably heard from him, Willie. I have no idea who at Angry Preds Fan is, but I find him to be humorous.
He is an Angry Preds fan. Look,
he is an Angry Preds fan. A lot of people are Angry Preds fans.
He's been very critical of me, and I have to remind myself, he goes by Angry Preds fan. So I guess he's always angry, right?
Yes.
I mean, I've never seen him happy. So
one day he might be happy.
So after
he would have to change his name then. So sometimes Angry Preds fan.
So after the Predators traded Alex Carrier for Justin Barron, at Angry Preds fan had this tweet, quote, Barry Trotz is doing the one thing you don't want to see GMs do, which is make moves like a wild pendulum swinging back and forth. He updated that thread after the trade last night. Quote, Trotz is doing the exact same thing again, which makes it at best a worrying trend and at worst franchise crippling in the long run. Trotz inherited a team that had already accepted a rebuild and made some selling moves at the 2023 deadline that had little expectation to win. He completely blew up his plan within 9 months over an 18-game point streak and then blew up that plan again within another year. All it takes from me to have patience with a first-time GM would be any sort of a clear vision. Trotz hasn't shown any of that. This bouncing back and forth over shorter samples is bad GMing. I guess we'll have to see if he'll learn from it. I agree with that.
Okay, let's go back to last March. Did you think that they mortgaged the future? What they made 2 very inexpensive acquisitions of veteran players when they were red hot, made the playoffs, easily could have won the first series. What was wrong with what he did last March?
I think it's less about Anthony Beauvillier and Jason Zucker in the fact that the Predators used an 18-game point streak. Again, I'm speaking for at Angry Preds fan here. That the Predators made the playoffs unexpectedly.
Right.
And then Barry Trotz decided to go all in free agency versus maybe tempering
expectations versus pushing all
Okay.
of his chips into the middle of the table.
So it's not what he did at the deadline last year.
No, I think it's a response. I think it was his response to the team's unexpected success.
Okay, so that's easy to say in hindsight, right?
Sure.
But what you think that after making the playoffs, you should just go into a rebuild? Is that what he's saying?
I think
It's not like they traded the top prospects.
No, you're right.
They used the cap space that
no,
they had.
You're right
to try
about
to add
that.
to a good team.
You're right about that. They
Remember,
did not.
UC Saros is 29. Roman Yossi's 34. Philip Forsberg is 30. Right, you got Ryan O'Reilly. Like you have a nucleus. What are you going to do with those guys? You want to just go into a rebuild with those guys? It's always easy in hindsight when something doesn't work to say, well, you should have gone into a rebuild.
Sure. And I, like a lot of people, were intrigued by what the Predators did in free agency last year. I think Angry Preds fans' point is, did the Predators make a mistake by making the playoffs? I mean, like by looking at what they did after making the playoffs and saying, hey, we're closer than we think. But maybe they weren't really all that close.
In retrospect, I think that's a fair question. But who's close? Like there's always teams that rise and fall, and so I think that's a difficult game to play because in a given year there's only a couple of real juggernauts. Right? Was Vancouver close coming into this year after what they did last year? They're teetering on not making the playoffs right now. They've revamped their roster. They traded JT Miller. Like that hasn't gone real smooth. Is Edmonton better than they were last year? They're as loaded as you can be, but they're having some issues right now because of what happened in the offseason. Everybody's got difficult decisions to make. Now, where I think it's really coming under scrutiny now is the moves that Barry Trotz has made since the season started. Like I don't think anybody could really begrudge him other than to say, look, the center was. I think he would tell you the center wasn't there in the free agency that was worth the buy. There's a guy playing tonight for the Kraken, Chandler Stevenson, who the Kraken overpaid to get, and that was just what you had to do to get somebody like that. There weren't great centers out there, so that was maybe what Barry Trotz would have liked to have done, but that was kind of steep. And then you had Stamkos and Marchessault saying, "I want to come to Nashville," so that would. I can't begrudge him for that, even though that in retrospect it doesn't look good. But the Barron trade for Carrier is definitely coming back to bite them, at least at this point, unless Barron, with these last 20 games, can develop into something that he doesn't look like he is right now. But this is where maybe you could find guys or not find guys. He's cheaper than Carrier. And remember, they lost Lausanne and some of these other guys that are hurt. So the moves that he's made since the season started have not helped them throughout the season get through the adversity. The Fabro to waivers and things like that. They could definitely use Dante Fabro tonight. Like they've got one guy on the defense corps tonight that started the regular season for them. So they've turned over a lot of guys since the start of the season.
We will pick this conversation back up. We'll also take your reaction to the Predators trade of Tommy Novak and Luke Shen for Michael Bunting and a 4th-round pick, 615-737-1025. Coming up next, we will talk to the man who broke this trade, Elliot Freeman, Sportsnet NHL Insider. We'll do that next. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game. D. Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Broadcasting from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios, home of the $99 yearly Beehive membership, where the buzz is always about great service. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you, joined on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com, by Sportsnet NHL Insider Elliot Freeman, presented by Old National Bank. Get old. Elliot, when I saw you tweet last night that the Predators and Penguins had made a deal, Tommy Novak and Luke Shen, for Michael Bunting and a 4th-round pick, it was a bit of a head scratcher for me. Can you explain the rationale behind this move from both teams' perspectives?
Well, I think, hold on one second. What happened to my CarPlay here? Okay, so I think for you guys, it's simply, Adam, that you guys want to make a change. As we all know, it's a situation where you guys have not been happy with your mix, and I think that's simply it. There had been some interest in Shen. There had been some interest in Novak. Novak last year, you'll remember, there was a lot of interest in him, but ultimately you guys decided to keep him, right?
Yes.
So I think that you guys just kind of went back and looked and saw who else was out there. And Bunting, like, Pittsburgh had just about everybody available, right? So I think that you guys are looking for a different mix, Adam. And, I like Michael. He's an edgy guy. He plays hard. I bet you guys just wanted some energy, some different energy.
So by making this trade, the Predators free up $1.75 million in cap space. Could you see this move as a precursor to something else between now and the deadline tomorrow afternoon for the Predators?
Yeah, I think so. I think that Barry's open. He's been pretty open about it. Like, everybody knows what he wants to do. So I don't think you guys are done. I don't think you guys are done by any stretch of the imagination. I think you have to be ready for anything.
Do you think that could involve just moving players out, or do you think a young player perhaps could be coming in for the future?
I think you, honestly, Adam, I think you have to be prepared for anything. I really do. Like, I know that it's a boring answer and you're hoping for something a little more in depth, but I got to tell you, I think Barry has indicated that he's not. Look, it's been a disappointing season. Nobody's happy with the way it went down. I'll say this, that one came out of left field. When someone sent me the note that one was happening, I was like, really? Like I was like, that's not one I was expecting. So I just don't know how you can't be prepared for Trotz to do just about anything.
Switching gears here for a moment, you had an update last night at sportsnet.ca regarding Mikko Rantanen. He is the player everybody is wondering about between now and tomorrow afternoon. You wrote yesterday, according to multiple sources, the Hurricanes are doing their due diligence, checking out potential returns as either a rental or with an extension, assuming he's willing to sign anywhere before July 1st. What more can you tell us about this story since you wrote that update last night?
I think it's still going on. I'll say this. I think there's two things. Sorry, Adam. I was just, as you could tell, I was a little distracted there. Now I've got this all sorted out. But I think that I think there's two things at play here, Adam. Number one, where is he willing to sign? And number two, is there really a rental deal that makes any sense for Carolina? If he's willing to sign somewhere, I think there's the possibility Carolina could get some good packages in return. But if it's simply rental, and I think there's teams out there interested in rentals, but what kind of rental package is going to interest the Hurricanes? Now, I'll say this. As a rental, he's $2.3 million. Almost anybody at 50% retained. Almost anyone can do it. I think that would drive up the price. I think there are some teams that can't sign him that would love to get him as a rental. So I think that would drive up the price a bit. But really, is there anything rental-wise that would make the Hurricanes do it? I think the key is will he sign somewhere? And I think the answer is yes. I wonder about teams like Dallas. If the answer is yes, maybe LA, though I heard it was unlikely. If the answer is yes, I think there's a good trade out there that can be made.
Elliot Friedman is with us, and I know, Elliot, you're constantly looking to see what's going on around the league in real time as you talk to us. So we appreciate you coming on here during this crazy 24-hour period that's not going to end until 2 o'clock tomorrow our time. So I guess 25 hours. The next 25 will be crazy. I want to ask you about Novak. And now that Novak is they're moving on, right? They have come to the conclusion in their mind that he's not the answer at the price he is. I was thinking they might ride it out and have him just say, look, he's not a second line center, but can he be a good sneaky source of offense at 3.5? That's debatable, but they've now moved on. So my question for you is, with the extra cap space that they have, specifically, you've mentioned guys like Casey Middlestat and Dylan Cousins. I don't know if there's any other centers that would sort of fit that mix. Do you think that they could be now in the mix to look at specifically those type of guys?
Yeah, I think so. Like, Casey Middlestat's an interesting guy. Now, the problem is, if you're in Nashville, you've seen him up close. And, like, you take a look at the challenge he had this year, or last couple of years, they wanted to make him their 2C, right? And it didn't work, Willie. So how comfortable do you feel that it's going to work any better in Nashville than it did in Colorado?
That would be the question. Your scouts would have to tell you that Middlestat is a lot better than Novak, but it's like everybody else, right? You get a new set of strengths and weaknesses, and time would tell. But this is the problem. Like, everybody right now is going back through all the moves that Barry Trotz has made. He was red hot last year. This year it hasn't gotten nearly as well, and so now everybody's like, well, what does this? What next?
Well, I think the thing is, I think that like the deal yesterday, that's like a low risk deal to me. It's like, hey, we need to shake up. You need to shake up. Like, Bunting plays hard. He drives people crazy sometimes, but he plays hard. I really like him. I can see why you guys would take a shot at him. It makes sense to me. And you know what? So I look at that, like, maybe, look, you guys have traded guys this year like Tomasino, Parsonen. They didn't fit with you, and other people are like, oh, maybe they'll fit with us better. And that's probably the kind of thing you're looking at now. Is there somebody else out there who doesn't fit as well with us or with them, that we can make it work? So I can see you looking at Middlestat. The danger about a guy like Casey Middlestat is that, like I said, it didn't work for him behind McKinnon. How comfortable are you that it's going to be better with you?
What about Cousins, who has a longer term and a higher number, but is younger? And of course, you spent a lot of time on your podcast, I know, talking about the mysteries of Buffalo, right? Where they draft high. They've got a lot of guys that look promising at one point or another. Middlestat used to be in that category, and then they seem to go other places and blossom. So what's the latest with Cousins, and how would you compare Cousins as somebody that Barry Trotz might hone in on in comparison to Middlestat?
Willie, I think he would be absolutely all over Cousins. I do. I don't see why. First of all, he's signed. He's still young. He's shown a lot of promise. Here's the problem. Buffalo wants NHL players in return for Cousins, impactful ones. Do you see a match?
If I'm Buffalo, probably not.
Yes.
I think they have a lot of assets. They've got prospects, but I don't think
Buffalo's not doing
there's
a
an NHL guy.
prospect deal. They're not doing a picks and prospect deal for Cousins. They're not doing that.
So that so you have to have somebody that could help them immediately if you want to get in
right
on that deal.
now. Right now.
Tommy
Right
Novak could have been that guy, perhaps, as part of it. But
well, what that says to me, guys, is that Barry probably asked them. Like, I can't imagine he would have traded Tommy Novak to Pittsburgh in that deal if he had any inkling that Tommy Novak would have been acceptable for the Sabres.
right.
That says to me that he pitched it. It wasn't what Buffalo wanted, and he went in a different direction.
What do you think the market looks like now? We noticed that Nico Sturm was traded. There's a fourth line
Yep.
center. You categorized the centers really well last week, in that you got your skilled centers, Middlestat, Cousins, guys like that, and then you've got those workman-like guys that could be a piece on a winning team. So, what do you think the market is looking like right now for Michael McCarron and Colton Sissons?
Probably something similar to that. Well, Sissons has term, right? So
he's got 1 year left, and McCarron has 1 year left as well.
Right. I got to think Sissons. I would think the price for Sissons is a little bit higher. I'll say this, guys. Like, if you would have told me this morning Brian Dumoulin was going for a second and a prospect, I don't think I would have believed that. I would think the market for McCarron and Sissons is a little bit higher than what Sturm went for this morning, but I'll say this, it's a seller's market out there. The one thing is, like, the teams are going to go after like Braden Shan, like Scott Lawton now, he's going for a first rounder. After what Tampa did yesterday with Seattle, that's a first rounder. So you've got to, and I don't think McCarron and Sissons are going for that, but I think it's probably higher than what Sturm just went for.
One other thing that's happened.
The thing is also is that, like, there's about 6 or 7 of these guys, right? Now, some of them are starting to come off the market. Sturm is gone, but there's Suter in Vancouver. There's Bjugstad in Utah. Although he's not playing tonight, they're saying he's sick. We'll see. The problem is that you can probably have your pick of these kinds of guys. So you're like Florida, they don't have a lot of assets. Sturm's a really good player. They probably just said, like, that's about as much as we can afford to pay.
Here's one thing that has happened since we started talking to you. The waivers came down, and Jacob
That's why
Vrana.
I was so distracted. I was trying to type them all out.
Yeah. So Jacob Vrana, it's interesting. Jordan Osterley has been claimed by the Predators, who need bodies of defensemen. Osterley actually scored a goal in Boston the other night against the Predators, and now he'll be playing for the Predators, probably not tonight. So he's a journeyman guy. Jacob Vrana is the other guy they just claimed. He's a little bit more intriguing. Not too long ago.
And was coached by Barry Trotz in Washington.
Yes, he was coached by Barry Trotz. And correct me if I'm wrong, he has a cup with Barry Trotz in the prime of his career.
He scored the Stanley Cup winning. No, he didn't score the Stanley Cup winning goal. He scored a big goal, but it wasn't the Cup winner.
He had a 25-goal season there, and has really fallen on hard times. What's happened to him? He's changed addresses a ton since then. Why has he not been a fit in the next phase of his career?
Well, you know what? I'll say this. He's been through some challenges. He was in the program a little bit, and luckily he's in a better place now. So I think there was that. I'm glad to see that he's back and he's healthy, and he's doing very well. You know what? I think that I really like. Unfortunately, I just think that his play fell off. I really like Jacob as a person. I'll tell you a story about him. When they won the Stanley Cup that year, when they won Game 4, they were up 3-1. They had 2 days off before they had to go back to Vegas. And the first day off, I went to the Capitals practice, and every regular was off. Nobody skated except for Vrana. And I went up to him and I said, every regular who played last night is off. Why are you out here? And he said, I can't score. I need to practice. I have to be able to score. And he went out in Game 5 and he scored a big goal. I always remembered that. Whenever I see him, we've always kind of joked about that. Look, unfortunately, it's It hasn't worked out as well for him lately. His play has fallen off. Some of it, I think, is a little bit of pace. The game got faster. He had a bit of a challenge sometimes. He's a great kid. I hope it works out for him. That's like, Nashville taking a chance. And I'll say this too about the Predators, and this is one of the things I really like about your organization. They've always been great for guys who've battled things off the ice to come back and try and make it. And I really like the fact that the fact that you guys do that.
Elliot, before we let you go, the Los Angeles Rams are known to have popularized the term F them picks when they won their Super Bowl. The Tampa Bay Lightning are doing the exact same thing.
Yes.
You mentioned the Seattle Kraken. They're here in Nashville tonight to face the Predators. They traded Yanni Gourde and Oliver Bjorkstrand to the Lightning. They get 2 first-round picks back. And I appreciate the fact that Julien Brisebois, the GM of the Lightning, realizes that if this team is going to be good, those first-round picks are going to be late first-round picks. Not all first-round picks are created equal. He's going for it. What do you make of what the Lightning have been able to do and what they have done at the deadline?
I say this. I think you can always do that when you're a destination. Not every team can do that. Like Tampa knows great weather, no state tax, excellent organization, players always willing to play there. He can do that. If he didn't have those things, he couldn't do it that way. But I'll say one thing about Brisebois. He's ruthless. He makes hard decisions, and I love that press conference.
Steven Stamkos learned that very well last year.
Yes. Ryan McDonough. Like Ryan McDonough, you'll remember, and then he went back. That just shows you how much guys want to play there.
Elliot Friedman, Sportsnet NHL insider. He's going to be a very busy man, by the way, during the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast last week. They had a camera on Elliot in a conference room with how many tablets you had open, I don't even know. But you were hard at work, and they gave you a glamour shot during the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast. I got a good laugh out of that.
I got to tell you, Adam, that's the first time me and glamour shot have been used in the same sentence.
Well, I'm glad that I could do that for you, Elliot. I know you're a busy man between now and the deadline tomorrow. Thank you so much for taking time to join us.
No worries, guys. Sorry. I'm sorry I was a little distracted at the beginning. It's been a little bit crazy.
I'm sure it is. We will keep your updates front of mind over the next 24 hours. Elliot Friedman joining us from Sportsnet NHL Insider, brought to you by Old National Bank. Get Old. 615-737-1025. We will react to what Elliot had to say. We'll also take your reaction on the Predators trade last night. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, The Game.
All right, we're talking Predators. That means Lee Company. It's time to tell you about them. They're covering or sponsoring, as usual, our radio coverage here on 1025 The Game. And Max Hers will have that starting at 6 o'clock. Who knows what Barry Trotz has up his sleeve yet? It's been busy these last couple of days for sure, and perhaps more changes are coming. In the meantime, Lee Company's continuing to do their thing. They've been in business since 1944. Consistent coverage of our listening area with all the types of things that keep your house in order. General maintenance, home improvement, and of course, the nucleus, your heating unit, your central air, your plumbing, your electric. They have a program called the Home Maintenance Plan that services all those things year-round. They'll give you the annual checkups, make sure everything's okay, and they'll give you discounts when it's time to make repairs. And if you're a homeowner, you know that day will happen at some point. So just give them a call, 615-567-1000, or go to leecompany.com. That's 615-567-1000 or leecompany.com.
D. Mace, Finnegan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Live at Bridgestone Arena. Predators and Kraken tonight at 7. Pre-game at 6, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Thanks to Elliot Freeman for joining us. He is a very busy man. The NHL trade deadline is roughly 24 hours away, 2 p.m. Central.
Uh-oh.
And as Elliot said, for the Predators, be prepared for anything. So we'll see what happens between now and 2 o'clock. But we do have some reaction on our text line driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com about the trade the Predators made last night. Again, Tommy Novak and Luke Schenn for Michael Bunting and a 4th-round draft pick. One texter says, there's 100 Tommy Novaks. Who cares? Some even way more than him. Alrighty then. James says, Schenn is too old and slow. We needed to move his contract. Novak is a skilled player that disappears during physical games. Bunting scores more and plays with grit. I love the move. To get Bunting for next year and yet another opportunity to look out in the draft to get a stud, I love it. Brad on our text line says, I agree with buying out Ryan Johansson, but I would be hard-pressed to come up with another move that Trotz has made that's been a win, and we can argue with that. He seems to be trading away homegrown talent for cast-offs from other teams, some of which were first-round picks. Now, I would say the decision to buy out Matt Duchene was a good one. I know that Matt Duchene has been a successful player with the Dallas Stars, but the key to that has been he's been making far less money in terms of the contract he has with the Stars. He's getting the buyout money from the Predators, and he is a secondary player for the Dallas Stars. He is not paid to be the lead dog, which he was with the Nashville Predators, a role that he is, in my opinion, ill-suited for as an NHL player. So I would throw Matt Duchene in there. I believe the signing of Ryan O'Reilly has been quite good. Now, when they signed him, I thought they signed him for too long, but he has been a good influence in the dressing room. But I understand what Brad is saying, Willie. And you mentioned this earlier.
I think also, if you're trying to list wins, I think the Nyquist signing was a win. The
fact that they got a second-round pick out of him at the end.
But you got a career year out of him first.
Yeah.
So that was a home run for $3.1 million. You got a first-line right wing for $3.1 million, and you had 75 points. That's a victory. And then wheeled them for a second-round pick.
Yeah, your team just didn't benefit.
Well, the team benefited. They had 99 points last year, right? I'll take last year every time. I know people don't like losing in the first round.
As far as playoffs and advancing and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know everybody wants to win in the playoffs. I think all you could do as a GM is put a team together. I thought that team came together really well. There's a lot of wins from last year. And then as I think that's just part of the reason to your question earlier, Adam, why did he go all in? Is because I think he knew that there would be regression from guys like Nyquist and other guys who had big years.
Mm-hmm.
There would be a little bit of a fallback, and you needed to compensate that. That's why they added guys like Stamkos and Marchessault to feel like they could stay at that same level and maybe be better equipped. The other thing that has really jumped, come back to haunt them, we mentioned that the Carrier for Barron, the net result right now is not good for the Predators. It's not even close.
The waving of Dante Fabro.
Right. Fabro was more of a role player. He wasn't clearly in the top 6 all year. Last year, he was sort of in and out. He never really blended with Brunette, but he's a right shot defenseman who's an NHL guy, right? And you lost him on the waiver wire. That definitely, the net result is not good there. The other one that I think is underrated is just how they got from where they were last year to this year. And only time will tell long-term whether this will be a net win or lose. But the drop-off from Ryan McDonagh and what he gave them last year to what they're getting from Brady Shea this year is night and day. Ryan McDonagh was outstanding for them last year. Brady Shea has struggled from the get-go, right? And this is something that they've got to get fixed because Brady Shea is going to be on the Predators for a long time. That's something that I don't think anybody could see coming in the summer. If you knew that was a big mistake at the time, then more power to you. I thought it made sense, but as it has turned out, it has been, something that has dropped off, what you're seeing on the ice, right? It's not even close.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, I guess that was it. It's interesting, the different things. This was not a blockbuster trade that they made last night, right? You heard Elliot say that. It's an intriguing trade that may, at the end of the day, be sort of a wash. Luke Shen, I would now contend he gave them what they hoped they would give him. But if they're not going to make the playoffs, they're fine moving off from Luke Shen, and they get out of his contract for next year, which isn't a huge contract, but it is some money that they have a little extra to go and address something else.
Right. To me, again, the headline of this trade, and then we'll continue your reaction. The headline of this trade is that the Predators, after 1 year, remember, it was 1 year ago, Tuesday, that the Predators re-signed Tommy Novak. So in basically 1 calendar year, they gave up on him. And again, I commend Barry Trotz for getting out of the contract and, by extension, acknowledging that he made a mistake by signing Tommy Novak to that contract. But again, was
it a mistake, or because if he had been signed for $6 million, then I would be telling you that that's a huge mistake. But they signed him at a reasonable number, so I think that in and of itself, the day they signed it, I didn't think it was a mistake. It just hasn't worked out, and they have pulled the plug.
The miscalculation was thinking that Tommy Novak could be a consistent second line center.
But did they
know?
But did they think he could be when they signed him to that contract, or were they?
I
hedging?
don't know the answer.
I think they were hedging. I think they were hoping. I think they hoped that there would be a better center that became available, so that they could keep him more in the role that he's more suited. I think, and I think they looked around and said, we don't really have a better option here. We've got to throw him into that second line role. And he clearly was in over his head. So if you believe that he is who he is now, then you might like this deal. If you believe that there's another level that he's going to become something that he hasn't, which is what Pittsburgh is rolling the dice on, then you probably think this is a bad move. But they clearly have pulled the plug in 1 year. I'm just pointing out that the investment was reasonable and not overpay, $5 or $6 million. Then I think it would be a big bust.
The other thing that people go back to is what Elliot mentioned with us, that this time last year, when Tommy Novak was unsigned, there seemed to be a lot of interest in Tommy Novak. And it sounds like they probably could have gotten more for him than they did in this deal, which I think
I don't think there's any question. I don't think there's any question.
Clouds people's perception.
But in the moment, when you had all kinds of momentum, you were going to make the playoffs, and Novak was a part of that.
Yeah.
Would you have traded him? I mean, that would have been what kind of reaction would you have gotten for that at the time?
Bob is in Antioch on our phone line, driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. Bob, thank you for calling. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, guys. I have a couple of questions. Number one, on the road trip last week, Brunette mentioned at least once that I saw that there were a lot of passengers during those games, and that alarmed me because that indicated there might be some lack of effort, locker room problems, et cetera. Do you guys think that there is much of that in their locker room? And my second question is, we're in a rebuild. You can call it what you will, but I really think that we're in a rebuild. I'm a very patient person. I hope the fans are. How long do you think it will take them to turn it around? 2 or 3 years? And I'll listen up there.
If I can take a stab at the second question, Willie would be better equipped to answer the first question because he's around the team every day. How long is it going to take? That's a good question. It really depends on the players they signed in free agency last summer. Was this just the season from hell for Steven Stamkos and Jonathan Marchessault and Brady Shea? Or are they starting to show their age? And is Steven Stamkos devolving, for lack of a better term, into a power play specialist who you can expect little to nothing from at 5-on-5? Like, was this the beginning of the end of Steven Stamkos, or was this just, again, the nightmare scenario? That is the major question to me to determine how long it's going to take them to get back to where we thought they were going to be this season.
Right. And now what you might have an opportunity to do is get a top 5 pick, and if they have a little luck in the lottery, who knows? It could be 1, 2, or 3, something like that. Right now, if they just stayed in their spot, they would pick 3rd, right? Have I got that right?
I believe that is correct.
So, I mean, they've never, since David Legwand, I think the highest they've ever picked is 4th since then, because they've always been consistently in the playoff picture.
Let me go to my favorite website, tankathon.com. If you haven't visited tankathon.com, they also do NHL tanking as well, not just the NFL. So the Predators are in the 3rd spot.
In terms of how long would the rebuild be, right? Barry Trotz does not, and he has told Jared this very consistently week in, week out. He's not about having the Detroit, Anaheim, Chicago, San Jose types of rebuilds that take 8, 9, 10 years.
Complete strips.
Detroit's sitting there right now going, are we going to miss the playoffs again? Like they look pretty good a couple weeks ago. They are right on the bubble. Ottawa hasn't been to the playoffs since they made the Eastern Conference Final in 2017. They're sitting there right now going, are we going to miss the playoffs again? They've done all the things to rebuild and get the high picks and then pay them. And then it takes so long to do that. Barry Trotz doesn't want to do that. He might have the opportunity to get a high pick that does move up faster and maybe help your team quicker than most draft picks do. And Adam, I agree with you 100%. For them to be good in the next couple of years, they have to have a resurgence from the top guys. All of their top guys this year have had subpar years. All of them. Every one of them. And I'm talking about the homegrown guys that have been there for a long time and the new guys. It's a combination of all of them.
615-737-1025. We'll wrap up the show next with a look at what happened in the SEC last night.
Oh, what a night.
Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan, 1025-1063, the game.
Hey, thank you for putting me in, Coach. Hey, this is D. Mason, and you heard me tell you about Dr. Lodge and his staff over at Cool Springs MD for some time. If you set out to lose weight, chances are it's not your first time setting some type of goal to shed some extra pounds only to face disappointment, but I got some solutions for you because at Cool Springs MD, Dr. Lodge and his team understands the frustration of this cycle, and that is why they offer a different approach to weight loss. Their comprehensive weight loss program is led by Dr. Jeffrey Lodge and addresses the root cause of weight gain with tailored nutrition, exercise, blood test supplements, and more. They will customize a program specific to you and you only. So connect with Dr. Lodge at CoolSpringsMD.com today to schedule your appointment for a personalized weight loss plan just for you. That's Cool Springs MD, where your weight loss journey becomes a success story.
D. Mace, Fingan, and Donick, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Willie Donick, Derek Mason, Adam Vingan here with you. Stillman and Company coming up next on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. The Predators are back in action tonight against the Seattle Kraken. Puck drop at 7, pregame at 6, of course, right here on 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Before we get out of here, gentlemen, another bananas evening in the SEC. Ole Miss stuns number 4 Tennessee 78-76. Florida goes on the road, defeats Alabama 99-94.
Now that was stunning to me. That was more stunning than Ole Miss beating Tennessee. To me, the way that Florida basically led wire to wire at Alabama. They were the better team from the start. I don't know about wire to wire. They were up by 2 at the half. The second half, they just
Florida just dominated.
They dominated.
Yeah, Florida just dominated the second half.
And Oklahoma upsets Missouri. Oklahoma wins 96-84 at home. So Joe Lunardi, of course, the expert bracketologist over at ESPN, his update this morning, no surprise. He has Florida moving up to the 1 line, Tennessee as the top-ranked number 2 seed, followed by Alabama. So my question for you two is this. With Florida's win against Alabama, Tennessee's loss to Ole Miss, what does Tennessee need to do? What has to happen for the Vols to get back on the 1 line?
2 things have to happen to me because people are losing sight of this. One, I think they do have to win the SEC tournament in order, or at least got to get into the championship.
I think they need to beat Florida.
Yeah.
If they face Florida, regardless of, I don't know when they would meet based on the standings, but they need to beat Florida.
But then again, that needs to be either in the championship game or the game before the semifinals.
Okay.
That has to happen. And this is what no one's saying right now. Michigan State is still there. Michigan State, if they outright, they've won the Big Ten already. Now, if they go in and win the Big Ten tournament, now they have a strong case for the number 1 seed.
Your Spartan is showing, Derek.
In the West. No, I'm just saying, like,
I hear you.
the West.
Because
there are 2 right now, and it depends on what Tennessee and Florida does in their respect in the SEC tournament. So I think Tennessee and Florida would either have to get in the champion. I think both of them have to get in the championship game in order to secure a number 1 seed.
The Michigan State thing's an interesting one. It goes down to the philosophical question is how much does the committee change the seeds based on the conference tournament?
Yeah.
The last few years, it seems like the consensus is they're not weighing it as much as you might think. I think that they should. Otherwise, why are we playing these tournaments if it doesn't matter who does well?
But don't you think this year may be a little bit different because of the strength of the Big Ten as well as the SEC?
I think it should.
Yeah.
I think it should.
No, I do too.
I do think that Tennessee, you would think just with Florida has won some impressive games now. They have won at Auburn. They have won at Alabama. That is a pair of huge wins on the road, and those road wins carry more weight. Florida is really good. My goodness, they are loaded up and down their roster. Alabama just did not have any answers. And Alabama, the flaws defensively, I think that is their weakness right now is they just didn't have any answers. They could not stop Florida on their home court to save their lives. And that more or less happened in the Auburn game as well. So Florida, I think, is a legit 1 seed. Tennessee, I don't look at them and say that's a clear-cut 1 seed. And last night was a good example. I thought Tennessee played well.
They getting these lows,
and I thought it took a lot for Ole Miss to win that game. That one kid went off, that senior. He just made every play down the stretch. And that game easily could have gone the other way. You saw Milicic. He throws it up there right as he releases the ball. The red light goes on. It's bouncing around the rim. If he makes that, it's overtime, and Tennessee could still have won the game. They're 1 rebound away from having that be the winning shot instead of the tying shot. So Tennessee's a tough out for sure. But I still think that they are a little bit hit or miss with their offensive weapons. And I think they could be stopped offensively.
I don't think
they don't scare me as much as Auburn or Florida.
And they proved it last night. And I think this has been sort of a microcosmo of sort of who Tennessee is really. That's why when you look at them, it's like, man, yeah, they can win, but God, I just don't know about them because, like they have done in games prior, they get into this lull where they're not moving the ball around. They're pounding the ball on the ground. One guy is just pounding and pounding away, dribbling the ball, and they're not running their offense. And then they end up taking an ill-advised bad shot. And they do that more times than not on the offensive side of the ball. Chaz, great in the first half. He was hitting from everywhere. And then all of a sudden, now they can't find him within. He spent a lot of times, I think, in the second half, on the wings, sitting, waiting for the ball, and then he'll move. They don't keep their offense flowing the way it needs to. When Tennessee is moving around, passing the ball, they get better shots. They're more of a hard team to cover. The minute they get stagnant, they don't have enough shooters, like legit shooters, or that one legit shooter like they had last year. Love Chaz, but nobody's comparing him in regards to the way he shoots the ball. Nobody's comparing him to Dalton Knecht in that respect. But he is a really good player. But they get stagnant in offense, and if their defense isn't going, they can lose to a 13 or 14 seed in this tournament.
Wow, that would be something if that happened. You would have some Volnation issues if they lost a game like that, which is what would happen to anybody. But let's look at their team. D-Mace, I think you're right on. They don't have a big man in the middle that's going to be a real force. They got the one guy, Akpara, that he can catch alley-oops and dunk it. If you leave him open, he's going to dunk it. But he's not a skilled guy in the lane, right? You've got Meshack and Gainey, a little bit hit or miss. If I'm scouting them, I'm not overly.
Meshack is not a knockdown shooter.
No, neither one of them are.
No.
They on certain nights they can hit them, right? But I'm scouting. I'm saying, are those the guys that I have to stop? No, it's about making it tough on Lanier, he gets all his points in the same way. He is a catch and shoot. You can't leave him for a second, right? And he's going to make some shots. He's a great player, but he doesn't beat you in all the different ways. Then there's guys like Milicic, who again is a little bit up and down, and then we know what you get from Ziegler. Ziegler's a great player, no doubt about it. But their lineup doesn't scare me like Auburn and Florida, where I look at those rosters and I say, man, how do we stop all these guys?
Or even Alabama, who can score the basketball at an incredibly high level.
And their issue is defense, right?
Yes.
I think I'm looking at Alabama and saying, I'm going to get mine against them. I can shred their defense.
But they can outscore you.
But yes, that's the issue with Alabama.
Here's another minor issue, I think, moving forward for UT. Listen, when you're talking about the metrics, I think UT should be one of those teams that has a legitimate shot at winning the national championship.
Because one thing they do, their defense is going to be there every night. They are going to make it tough on you defensively.
Absolutely. But here may end up in, and I saw a little bit of it last night. Zakai Ziegler. He has trouble against length. And he had trouble last night at points in the game, at trying to get his shot. And subsequently, he was able a few times to sort of pass the ball to the perimeter, and those guys knocked down a few shots. But if you're going to stop UT, you got to stop Zakai Ziegler. You got to make it hard on him. They were making it very difficult, especially in the second half. They were making it very difficult for Zakai Ziegler to get in the middle of the lane. And once he got there, all these trees are there.
Yep.
And he can't do much of anything. So that's one of the big problems, other than being stagnant. Him having the ball going against length at the guard position.
Yes, that is a great, I think, synopsis of how Tennessee could get beat. How did Vanderbilt beat them?
Yes.
Tyler Tanner did a tremendous job of making Ziegler work. You can't stop Ziegler. He's gonna have the ball. He's gonna make plays. They stopped him in Nashville. Didn't stop him. They contained him in Nashville. In Knoxville, Vanderbilt was in position to win that game, but Ziegler took over the game in the second half. If you can make it hard on Ziegler, your chances of beating Tennessee go way up. Easier said than done.
Yeah.
Can't wait for the SEC tournament next week. It'll be right here.
It's going to be fun.
At Bridgestone Arena.
Every game has been so watchable. Like I I have no dog in the hunt when I'm watching Florida or Alabama.
Yeah.
Even Oklahoma against Missouri. These are great games to watch.
Yeah.
Great games.
That'll do it for us today. Predators and Kraken tonight at 7, pregame at 6. But before then, it's time for Stillman and Company coming up next, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Be love on your people. Have a safe, blessed, wonderful Thursday. Peace.